Shalom everyone, and welcome for Parashat Shavua of Parashat Pekudei. Parashat Pekudei is the last parasha of the book of Exodus, which means we're having a closure over here. We're having here a completion of a very powerful book, the book of Shemot, the book of names, or Exodus as it is known. And this parasha concludes everything, gets everything together. So what's special about this parasha? First of all, what the parasha is talking about. The parasha is talking about, as it says, we are in Exodus 38, verse 21. Ele pekudei mishkan, mishkan ha'edut. These are the accounts of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle. Asher pukad al pi Moshe, avodat haleviim. So most of the story of Pekudei, which is not a long parasha, is basically Moses is giving an account of all what he did with all the donations of the whole nation of Israel. How much gold? Where did the gold go to? How much silver? Where did the silver go to? How much copper? Where did it go to? Everything to the detail, to the gram or to the ounce. Where did it go to? And then, when that is over, so we have chapter 40, verse 1, and on the first day of the first month, you will establish the tabernacle. That will be the topic of big part of the book of Leviticus. But it's already here being prepared. So the question is like this. Why do we need to hear about the report that Moses is giving to the nation of Israel? What did he do with the silver, with the gold, and all the other supplies that were given to him? We know Moses is the man of God. He is the most humble, most pure servant of God in the world, right? Why do he has to give a report? Comes the Zohar and tells us something very important and will lead us to other issues. First of all, you have to understand, Parashat Pekudei is maybe 92 verses. But the Zohar of Parashat Pekudei, it's almost 300 pages. The whole book, a whole volume. Like, what can you write so much about? But you have to remember, Parashat Pekudei is the assembly, the completion of all the journey of Exodus, getting from slavery to becoming a free human beings. The whole recipe is over here. Okay, so we have this week for the completion, and then the next session of, we're talking about the reading of the book of Leviticus, is about something else, about purity, about what you do with it. You know, after you realize your powers as a human being, as a creator, as a child of the creator, and your position in the world, then you have to decide what do you do with that. That will be the next book, the book of Leviticus. Meanwhile, here is, first of all, you have to come to that place that you feel the powers you have, that were given to you. Okay, so what do we have over here? כשנעשתה כל העבודה, I'm reading in פירוש הסולם, Rabbi Ashlag's commentary on Parashat Pekudei, verse 18 on his commentary, הסולם. כד יתאביד קל אבידתה, יצטרך משה לממני קולה. בגין דלה ימרון ישראל דישתער כספה ודאבה, והסתלק לנטללי. ועל די צריך לממני חושבנה כמה יוד ישראל, בגין דכתיב והייתם נקיים מהשם ומישראל. When all the job has been done and completed, Moses had to count everything, so no one among the nation of Israel will say that some gold and silver has been left over and Moses took for himself. How dare you? You have doubts on the leader? God forbid. God said, people will have doubts. Why? Because they're humans. And people do have doubts. They have to see the figures. It's called transparency. No transparency, forget it. You're a gunner. ועל כן היה צריך לספור חשבון לפני ישראל. That's why he had to give an accounting, to count the whole thing in front of all the nation of Israel. How dare you judge? How dare you suspect your leader? You should. You should suspect your leader. You should judge your leader. Why? Because if someone is not under transparency and checks and balances, forget it. The Talmud says it's very clear. Never ever bring yourself to places like this, because no one is strong enough to be above those seduction. This kind of, to be seduced by money, abuse of power. People are not strong. People are weak. Even Moses is saying, I am giving you an accounting. Why? And I am the man of God. Which means never ever will it happen that someone will say, you don't trust me? Yeah, I do trust you. But Moses said everybody has to give an account. Everybody has to report. Why? If you are a public servant in any way, how do you call a public servant in Hebrew? We have a Hebrew class today. How do you call a public servant in Hebrew? Pakid. And what's the name of the parasha? Pekudei. Okay? And where is it coming from? From the Shoresh Pei Kuf Daled. One of the most powerful words that you'll ever meet. We'll see it. We'll come to it. First of all, he says, משום זה כתוב, אלה פקודי המשכן משכן העדות, כי רוח הקודש הוא המלכות הנקרא משכן, היה מראה לכל. Moses had a help. The Holy Spirit dwelled on the Mishkan and showed everyone what happened with every ounce of gold and silver. What are we going to do? There's no Holy Spirit right now. Oh, but we have the internet. You can show everyone everything live as it is happening, so everybody can see, and you know that they're watching you. And you know what? Even when you think they're not watching you, they're watching you. Who? I don't know. WikiLeaks, Google, Facebook, they're listening. The Chinese, I don't know. But the moment you're having this device called smartphone, the whole world is listening to you. Everything you're doing is being stored somewhere and being used somehow and sometime, and it can be taken out on the right time whenever you don't want it to be taken out, or yes, maybe you do want it to be taken out. But in the ancient times, the Holy Spirit was supporting Moses, showing everyone what happened with all the gold and the silver and the copper, whatever. ורוח הקודש היה אומר, and the Holy Spirit was saying to every Israelite, וכסף פקודי העדה 100 כיכר. כל הזהב עשוי למלאכה וגומר. Was giving a report to the detail. משום שהקדוש ברוך הוא רצה בהם באלו האומנים, ורצה להראות נאמנותם לפני הכל. Because the Creator wanted that the artisans, that the people responsible for the construction of the tabernacle, including Moses, will be above doubt. What do you do now? You have to do everything in your power to be above doubt. And that means transparency. Why do you need that transparency? Let's read more. The Zohar continues. When the work of the Mishkan was done, can you imagine there was a huge amount of gold and silver and copper and all kinds of very precious gems and cloth, whatever, the treasures were over there. The dark side was going around trying to find a place. You know, whenever you're doing something big, something important, the dark side is always trying to get in. That's his job. Why? Because you can't be in a place of everything will be okay. Trust me, the thing will be good. Why should it go bad? Should go well? Because we're humans, and humans are very good at making mistakes, right? So you have to be careful and you have to be watchful if you really want your job to be done properly, especially when you do it for the public. Especially. This is more responsibility. By the way, when you're talking about responsibility, what's the word for that? So you know, when you have a responsibility doing a job, it's called in Hebrew tafkid. What is the shoresh? Again, pei kuf dalet. And what is the tafkid? There's another thing about that. Pei kuf dalet is also lefaked, to command. Mefaked is a commander, right? And a clerk, somebody who's a civil servant, that's pakid, okay? So we learn some words in Hebrew. It's all about this. Why? I'll say it again. I said it many times, but it's always good to hear. The Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, East Europe, beginning of the, like it was the middle of the 18th century, and he was a great Kabbalist. He was a miracle worker. He was a very powerful person. He had some Holy Spirit powers and so on. And he was asked, when is the Messiah going to come? When would be the redemption? And he said, when everyone is going to do their job, that's when the redemption is coming. Which means, what is it, somebody's job? Again, it's tafkid. That you'll be mufkad, which means responsible. Lefaked, to command over. It's all about pekudei, which is the commands, which is the accounts. It's all about accountability. And you know, working with somebody who has accountability, somebody who takes charge, and he reports to you, okay? That's a pleasure. Working with someone that has no accountability, he's not taking charge, he doesn't feel he's put in charge to do anything, that's a terrible hell, right? And he doesn't have to report to you. All of these verbs I use in English, in Hebrew, they're all coming to one verb in Hebrew, pei kuf daled, these three letters. Okay, being in charge, taking the command, accountability, being at service, it's all using the same thing. That's heavenly. That's heavenly environment when people do that. So, how do you do that? Let's continue. So, when the tabernacle was being constructed, the dark side was trying to get in. Anything you do, the dark side tries to get in. And the moment you look at someone and he says like, yeah, don't worry, it's going to be okay, now you start to be worried, right? Because he's not worried. It's your plumber, it's your contractor. It's like, if he's not worried, I should be worried, okay? ולא מצא עילה לאמונת האומנים. He couldn't find any way to get in the work of the artists that built the tabernacle. They were perfect. They were really what we just said. They were in charge, they were accountable, whatever, okay? עד שהקדוש ברוך הוא הכניע אותו לפני משה, till the creator overwhelmed him, the dark side, in front of Moses. Why? By making everything transparent. You want to know how you get rid of the dark side from your life? Transparency. Transparency. We'll talk about it. So when the dark side had to come, you have to come over. We're going to count how much gold and how much silver, what happened with each one of it. Of course he will come to sit in the committee. Why? He wants to find what's wrong. Couldn't find anything. So the one who is the prosecutor attorney, he's the one that will prove you right. So what you're doing when you create transparency, you use the dark side in your favor to create an immunity, an alibi. וזהו סוד שכתוב אלה פקודי המשכן ומנו אלה, כמו שאתה אומר גם אלה תשכחנה. The word אלה could be used for the dark side. אלה אלוקיך ישראל, it's like, I don't want to go into it, we spoke about it in the word Elokim. God, you can divide it into me and Ele. Okay? But I don't want to go into it right now. וכתוב אשר פוקד על פי משה, ששם על פי משה נתמנה ומופקד, עד שנעשה החשבון של המשכן לפני משה וישראל כולם. So, very important thing. Why is it so important? And it is important because transparency is our security zone. For instance, let's say you're a CEO and you're running the business and you have a lot of power. Okay? So, if you're smart, let's say if you're a man, you never allow a younger woman working for you to be with you alone in the office, especially after everybody went home. Why? There are two problems. People are weak, which means either you fall because you are in power, and it could be also the other side. You're a woman and the secretary is a man. Both can happen. And it will never happen to me. Maybe once in a blue moon. Okay, that's enough to destroy your life. Once in a blue moon. That's enough to destroy your life. That's why Halacha says you're never supposed to be with another person in a closed room, because either someone will abuse the power or somebody will have the temptation to sue you for doing something you didn't do. Why? Because she can. Or he can. Lawyers love that. The media love that. Why do you want to give that opening? However, but if you meet that person only with other people around, you're secure. You're secure by showing your dark side. Look, we're all there. Same thing. You're running a business. You're running a company. You're running a non-profit organization. It doesn't matter what, if you're the Pope or anyone else. If everything is, as long as everything is transparent, you're protected. You are protected. Why? You won't even dare to do certain things that will get you messed up later on, because everything is clear. Because transparency is cleansing. That's good for business. That's good for community work. That's good for government work. Whatever is not transparent calls in the dark side. And we have a problem in our society because our society is moving technologically very fast forward towards who knows where. Because 10 years from now, we can't even figure out how our life are going to look like. Because technology is changing everything, relationship, the way we do business, everything. The problem is that the government systems are stuck somewhere in the 40s and 50s, after, in last century, just after the World War II. It doesn't fit. And the problem is that stuff is coming out to the surface. Not that it was not there before. Oh, it was there before. But there was no social networks. There was no internet. Every person today could be a journalist in a second. My little daughter, years ago, she was 8 years old, and there was a kid in her class she was a little chubby and slow, and the teacher was abusing her. Verbally, she was not nice, and the girl was really suffering. My daughter couldn't stand it. She was 8 years old. She recorded the teacher doing that, and she brought the recording to the principal. Now, how many kids, if you're a teacher, how many kids you have in class? How many potential journalists you have in class? They can record you. Okay? Everybody has the systems, and if they don't have the systems, there is stuff everywhere. Don't you understand we're in a different world? And because we can't protect ourselves from ourselves, the world is starting to reassemble itself, so people could be accountable if they want it or not. So people will demand sooner or later that everyone in power, it doesn't matter if it's a non-profit organization or it is somebody in office, in a public company, or in a government office, whatever, everything will be available live to everyone. Why? People know the moment it's not transparent, the dark side won't move in. So am I trying to preach to some revolution in the government structure? Or no, I'm just saying what the Torah is saying. You want to be a free human being? It has to be transparent. It has to be transparent. You are not free when you're in the dark, when nobody knows what you're doing. When you have the power to do something, you do it or you don't do it, it doesn't matter. It's like you're done. You did it. The Talmud says it's like it's done. Sooner or later it's going to happen. You need only one time. How many people lost their career? Shining career, stars, just because of that, right? Including one president in the United States of America. And, you don't need a list, you just go online. There's so many. And maybe some of them you know personally, maybe some of them you know really intimately. Okay, when you look in the mirror, you have to remember this is not a game. We are humans and humans are weak. Never ever put you in a position, says the Torah, that it's not transparent. Okay, so after we spoke about it, we realize everything has to follow spiritual rules. That's what this book is about, the book of Exodus. You want to get out of slavery, you have to follow the rules. And some of the rules look like, oh, this is very materialistic. An eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. It's not materialistic. It is spiritual. You took somebody's money, sight, tooth. That's a blemish in your soul. You have to pay back sooner or later. All the rules in this book are the rules of how to become free. One of them, freedom, will be there when you live in a transparency. So now, let's say you're not in a position of any kind that I just mentioned. So what's in it for you? Oh, very simple. Spiritual work needs transparency too. The Kabbalists don't believe that a human being can do a real spiritual work by himself. You need to have other people to do it with. Why? Rabbi Ashlag is saying the desire to receive for the self alone, the dark side of each one of us is too strong for us to overcome it by yourself. It's only when it's all for one and one for all that that's going to happen. And how? We said in this book, Parashat Yitro, Mount Sinai Revelation, what did we say? Something very powerful. The name of the parasha of Mount Sinai Revelation is Yitro. Who's Yitro? Jethro, father-in-law of Moses. He wasn't even an Israelite. He was a Midianite, a righteous Midianite, because he did tshuva, although he was the high priest of all possible witchcraft and idol worshipping. The guy didn't leave one aspect, he didn't try. And then he comes to Moses and he says, I had enough, this is the true wisdom. Still, you don't honor him to give him the name of the most important parasha. But there's another secret. Before the parasha, we see that Jethro is coming to visit Moses, and he sees that Moses is teaching everyone. And Jethro is saying, are you kidding? You're going to wilt. You can't support everyone. It doesn't matter how great of a teacher you are. When you have students and you have to raise them above their selfishness, you can't have them all connected to your veins, intravenous, and you feed them because you will wilt. No one can do that. Over time, you will crash. That happens to all the big gurus. No transparency, and also people depend on you. That's a big disease. It's known by psychologists that the guru starts to develop dependency on his students and their admiration, and the students develop a dependency in the guru My guru must be the biggest in the world. He's the holiest in the world. And they somehow live that lie while all of them are falling, free fall, down to hell. That happens in so many places. It's like, no transparency. Oh, the next thing is 10, 9, 8, boom. It happens to everyone. No one's strong enough. And that's what Jethro is saying to Moses. He says, you're going to get a real community. And a real community is not thousands of people cheering to you, Moses, and as a representative of God. No, they have to support each other. They have to coach each other, eye level. You divide them into communities of 10 men each. Each 10 men have a leader. Each leader has his own community. Each community of leaders has own leader. You create a pyramid. Everyone is being supported 360 degrees. From the people below you, on your same level, and above you. Otherwise, there's no way you can create a liftoff above your own negativity. You need people to support you and transparency. What does it mean? The moment people who are your close community and are sharing with you the journey, you come one day upset, everybody sees that. What happened? You can't hide it. Only if you hide at home, but then they know you're hiding because they know you. You're supposed to be home together with us, meditating, praying, whatever. Why did you come? No, I have something. You never did. The moment you are emotionally, spiritually transparent to others, it's guaranteed you're going to have a liftoff, says Rav Ashlag. Why? When you have around you friends that believe in you, trust you, they know you can do better and they think you can do better, you'll have to do better. But if you're just by yourself and nobody's watching you, nobody knows what's going on, you can have a free fall and you think that you're rising to the highest levels and you have no idea because you have no one to tell you, hey, what's going on? Snap out of it. The most important thing a person needs to do for a spiritual journey is build his own community, and we spoke about it last week. It's transparency. A community, not that everybody shows up to the prayer service or meditation and they're all looking at the teacher and they go home. That's not a community. A community is when you have few people sitting in a circle looking into each other's eyes and saying to each other, what's wrong with you? What's bothering you? Tell me. I don't know. I don't want to bother. Tell us. When you make your stuff transparent, it's all for one and one for all. You can't have it in 3,000 people or even 1,000 people. You need 3, 4, 5, no more than 10. Usually the magical number is 6, 7. That's history shows that. Rabbi Azakluria had 21 main students. They were not a community. He divided them into 3 groups. Why? You can't get lost with 7 friends. With 21, yes, you can. You can go through something and nobody will notice. Rabbi Shimon, says Rav Ashlag, he says, when he comes out of the cave in Pekin, immediately, almost he gathers 8 more of his friends. Together they sit and they start to reveal the secret of the Zohar. Rabbi Shimon is saying not just that we reveal the secrets of the Zohar, you will be able to see kids walking down the street and talking secrets of the Torah. How come that happened? He said one reason. Because we love each other. We care for each other. We care so much for each other. And that what brings down those secrets to the world. If you're just by yourself, well, there's Israeli, if you grow up in Israel, let's say you bring something to school to eat. Let's say, my mother used to make like those amazing sandwiches. I never finished a sandwich. Because all the other kids, would say, there's a saying, you say, Misha ochel levad met levad. You eat alone, you die alone. You know, who doesn't want to die alone? No, you don't want to die alone. You don't want to live alone. Because you live alone, you die alone. But when you share, you're never alone. And that's why it says, make yourself a teacher and buy yourself a friend. Because building a community, this is a hard work. Start with 3. Invite someone for Shabbat, we said last week. Never be alone. Never be alone with your troubles, because when you're alone, the dark side already swallowed you up and burped, and you're finished, and you have no idea that you're finished, because you have no mirrors to give you the feedback that you're off the road, of the truth, of everything. That's what this parasha is about. Now, you know, to be transparent, you need some guts. But if you have a commitment, for your job, it's called tafkid. Okay? If you have a commitment, you feel in charge. Okay? That's you are mefaked. You are in charge. Right? And another thing in Hebrew, when you give your money to the bank, how do you call it? Lehafkid. Because you let them be in charge of your money. When you bring your child to school, it's the same verb, the same word, lehafkid. Because you let them be in charge of your child and you trust them to take responsibility. Same word. Because all of it, whatever society is structured about, whatever a company is structured about, is trust. Trust that you trust someone that is not going to abuse the power he has by the company, the society, the government, it doesn't matter. And he's going to use it for your benefit and everybody's benefit, including himself. That is a culmination of being free. That's a culmination of getting out from slavery to freedom. What is freedom? Immortality. When are you immortal? When you are with people who don't let you die. When every time you start falling and dying, they lift you up. Why? Because they love you. Why they love you? Because they're spiritual. Because they understand that we are all in it together. And that's what triggered Mount Sinai revelation. Keish echad belev echad, one person, like one person and one heart. That triggered Mount Sinai revelation. Without that, the 2 tablets were not being given. Nothing will happen. Nothing. It's not that God was waiting there for thousands of years for the rendezvous. No, the rendezvous was created the moment it said in Genesis, let there be light. Light, or numerical value 207. It's the 2 letters of the month of Gemini, Sivan, Reish, Zayin, Raz 207. It was supposed to be given on Mount Sinai. However, the revelation was already created in the beginning. What triggered it? When those people standing there on Mount Sinai, trusting each other, supporting each other, as Rav Ashlag is saying, really supporting each other. When a person feels that he's supported, and that means it's supported, if he falls, somebody will pick him up. And falls means you don't have enough money, or you made a mistake. You messed up. You know other people will cover up for you. You can really devote yourself for God. When you're there, giving 100% of yourself to everyone and to the creation and for the purpose of creation, then that triggers Mount Sinai revelation, which is the gift of freedom. What's freedom? That you don't have to be afraid of anything. Why? You're not alone. You're not alone. That means you dare to be there with people. Today people are alone because they don't dare to be there with people. They don't trust anyone. Building a community is not easy. The Kabbalists of the 16th century in Tzfat, all of them were part of a community. They never dared to be by themselves. We're talking about the biggest of them all, Rabbi Shlomo Elkavitz. the one who wrote Lecha Dodi. Rabbi Yosef Karo wrote the Shulchan Aruch. Each one of them were the level of really Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit could talk through them, and did talk through them. They never trust themselves to be on their own. They always made sure to be transparent. When I fall, somebody will pick me up. And if I fall and nobody will be around, that could be the end. So you don't do that. So yeah, but I have to get out of my comfort zone to be there with people. I don't like people. Of course. We're born like this. You have to break that. You have to create a trust with people. And you have to create that trust by being transparent. It doesn't mean you have to do it with everyone. Pick 3, 2, and work on it. That's very important. This is the beginning. Now, here comes another thing. Verse 29 in the Pirush HaSulam, in the commentary of Rav Ashlag. Bore, Mishkan ze omed becheshbon. The Mishkan, the tabernacle, has to come into cheshbon. Cheshbon, it's a game of words by the Zohar. Cheshbon means math in Hebrew. Let's say you're a kid, you go to learn cheshbon, you're learning math. Okay, the numbers, the figures. Okay, that's called an accounting. Okay, but what does it mean? שהמלכות הנקראת משכן היא בחינת קו שמאל. But I said it's a game of words. When the Zohar speaks about counting, you know, after the Exodus, Pesach, what do we have? 7 weeks of counting of the Omer. What do you mean to count the Omer? You count the Omer, it's a game of words. Sfirat HaOmer. Sfira means Sefirot, means to count. It means also illumination. So, when the Zohar says, when you build a vessel that has a size and a volume and a desire, then the light will illuminate into it. Somebody says, I have nothing, I'm nobody, I'm worth nothing, I'm doing nothing, I'm just living here on the street or in the forest, I'm doing nothing, I own nothing. Okay, you own nothing, you have nothing, you're nothing, you're zero. Why? Because you can't give anyone anything. Right? When can you be valuable to others? When you're worth something. And to be worth something, you have to work on your network, on your net worth, right? Just for free, your net worth is never going to rise. It doesn't work like this. You have to do cheshbon. You have to do cheshbon, which means accounting of who you are, what you're capable of, physically and spiritually, because if you have nothing, there's nothing you can give to others. If you have nothing, you're not drawing anything from above. The Kabbalists explain that being spiritual and being rich is not a contradiction. When we're talking about the great wise men of the Talmud, you couldn't be one of them if you were not rich. Why? If you're worried about what you're going to eat, how can you deal with lofty ideas of universal meanings? You're busy surviving. If you're busy surviving, what part of you is active? Your beastly nefesh. You're like a beast, busy about survival. If you're busy by survival, it's also, you cannot tell anyone anything wise, because wisdom cannot dwell because you don't have the vessel. So counting, and why the tabernacle had to be made of gold, that's not spiritual. We should sit there on the sand in the desert and just meditate and everything will be great. Right? Why do you have to collect the gold? Why do you have to collect silver? Why do you need art? Why does it have to be so hard? Why? Because that's what this world is about. You build a vessel, and if you build it, the light will come. That's how it works. And that's called cheshbon. And cheshbon is left column. Cheshbon means accounting. Left column. when you're worth a lot, you have a big potential. That means assets, that means talent. Nobody gets talent just by sleeping the whole day. Forget it. It doesn't happen. Talent is being acquired by a lot of hard work. That means your net worth is higher because you worked for it. This is cheshbon. So, when you have that net worth, when you have that value that is being acquired, it's becoming left column. What is left column? Without the minus, you have no electricity. Without desire to receive, you have no life. So developing the left column builds the vessel. Okay? Now, what does that do? When you have value, then you draw in the bliss. The bliss can dwell only where there is value. That's a very important thing. All over Genesis, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You go to the book of Kings and stuff like this. There's a miracle of the oil. This lady didn't have what to eat. Her husband was away, was learning to be a prophet of God, and the king wanted to kill him, and he hid. His wife did not have what to eat. So the prophet said to her, Elisha says to her, what do you have in the house? He said, nothing. He said, you have something. He said, oh, I have a little bit of oil. He says, okay, bring the oil. The olive oil, and bring that, and now bring to the house all the pots you can get. From the neighbors, from wherever you know. Now fill them up. So she took that little jar of oil, and she poured and filled one pot after another, till all the pots in the house were full. When the last one was full, says the Book of Kings, the oil stopped running. Why? There's no more vessel. You want the bliss to flow, you need to build a vessel for it. A vessel is the desire, the vessel is the ability. This needs to be structured and built, and has to be created according to the rules of accounting. Okay? And that's why it says, now after that, we're still in verse 29 in Perush HaSulam of the Zohar. Al ken itzricha litfilat Moshe. Now the prayer of Moses had to be added, because when you have value and you have a bliss, there's a fear you can abuse that value and bliss, right? A lot of people, they have talent, they have money, they have wisdom, and they mess it up because there's no transparency. Nobody there says, snap out of it. You're selfish. You think you're someone you're not supposed to be. You're not nice, you're not kind, you're not giving the service. Okay? It's like, you have to understand that everybody watches you. Today, everybody watching everyone. Unless, not the ones who are not so interesting. But if somebody is interesting enough to you, you can watch them on, watch the steps on Facebook or whatever. Everything is so easy to get access to. Now, or somebody else is reporting about them. So the blessing will dwell in the vessel and will stay there. You need a central column. What is a central column? There's no abuse of power. There's no abuse of money. There's no abuse of opportunities. You use it for the purpose of having the bliss, so you can also share it with others. Why? Why did the Creator give it to you? Just to have it for yourself? No, it doesn't work this way. We said, this was Shabbat Shkalim was yesterday. That's a Shabbat before the new moon of Pisces. And Shkalim is about half a shekel. That you have to build the 10 sefirot of returning light, so you have a vessel to hold your bliss, which are the 10 sefirot of direct light. Direct light is what you want. God will give it to you. Why? You can't say no. The problem is, high and by. You get all of it, and how long would that last? Till you explode into it? Okay? So, the blessing will dwell, which means stay, linger, in the vessel when it's a central column. When, on one hand, you have direct light, left column. On the other hand, you have returning light, which means caring, sharing, using it for others. and the ability to merge it together, that's a central column. And that's, Moses brought that blessing, the central column, saying, V'yivarech otam Moshe, and he blessed them. Maya bracha sheberech otam. Whenever all the accounts were finished, Moses blessed them. Why? Now there was a vessel for the blessing to come in. So, you want blessings from all kinds of people, you go to a rabbi to bless you. My rabbi used to say, I can bless you from, forever. The problem is, do you have a vessel to contain that blessing? What about bread of shame? You have to build the 10 sefirot of retaining light. The effort to use what you've got, what you want to have, also for others. Also, not just, also. What was the blessing Moses blessed the Israelites? And we'll conclude with that. He said like as follows. Yehi ratzon shetishre bracha al maseh yedechem. May it will be the desire, the will, that the blessing will dwell on whatever you do. Uvrachot. And what does it mean? That every time that we do something, it doesn't matter if, again, you are a plumber, you are a high officer in the government or in the army, or you're just a high officer in a public company or private company, you're a CEO, or you're just a husband or a wife, a father or mother. Doesn't matter what is the position that was handed over to you by the Creator. You want the blessing to dwell on what you do. How would that happen? Just learning that consciousness. That on one hand, you have to have a desire, a complete desire to be successful. On the other hand, you know that success will not dwell on what you do unless you use it for the benefit of others too. Why? Oh, but they don't need me. You need them. You need to create that returning light. By when you create a direct light and returning light, and it's all becoming one central column, and it becomes one in your consciousness. That's what this parasha is about. How do you reach out to that place? It's like the word Shabbat. Shabbat is a day of harmony. Bat is the Holy Spirit, the daughter of God. Bat. What is the Shin? Says the Zohar, last week's parasha. Shin is 3. That's how you write a Shin. 3 Vavs, that's a Vav. Now 3 Vavs, it makes a Shin. What are the 3 Vavs? Are Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Right, left, and center. Sharing, receiving, and how do you get yourself into it? Says the Zohar. Oh, we learned during this book about the 72 names of God. The 72 names of God, each one of them is made of 3 letters. Why 3 letters? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's made of 3 verses. Right, left, and center. That is the power that allows the upper light to come and dwell in whatever you do. It's a consciousness of sharing, and when you are not capable, you have to train yourself through meditation, through prayer, through the study, till you acquire that consciousness that has the ability to make the synthesis. That you see your client as part of your life, as part of your congregation, part of your community. Or when you see your supplier as part of your community, when it's all becoming, and a lot of people start to talk about it, that business is a community. Your place of business is your community. The people you shop at, it's your community. That the people you live around, it's your community. What does it mean it's your community? You need to bring in that consciousness that you are part of them and they are part of you. You can't without them. They can't without you. You have something to give, to chip in into the whole. Each one of them does it, and when everybody functions and doing his job, his tafkid, when everything is into account, ele pekudei, then you experience real freedom from, unnecessary fears, anxieties, negativities, and the ability to know that, you know what they say, it takes a village. When you have, you know that your community is behind you, at least few people, you know that you can make it. Good luck for all of us. Thank you very much. Chodesh Tov. Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov.